this video, we have 2 hours worth of some of the essential skills when you're working in Microsoft Word. This is basically a mashup video of all of the videos that I've done in Word so that you have them all together in one place. Don't forget to check the description area for timestamps so you can jump between the different sections. Grab yourself a coffee, sit back and enjoy. If I had to name my most favourite feature of Word, it would have to be word styles. Now, before you get excited, this tutorial isn't about word styles, but it is going to show you why it's so helpful to ensure that your document is styled correctly using the inbuilt word styles, because this is going to help you out in so many different scenarios when you're trying to work with particularly longer Word documents. Now, this lesson is about how you can quickly make selections, which might sound super basic, but trust me, if you've ever had to sit there reformatting a 200-page document, then this is going to save you so much time. So let's dive in. Now on the screen here I have a document. Again, it's not particularly long, it's about 4 pages, but this will be enough to demonstrate what we're trying to do. Now this document has already been styled. Now word styles are basically inbuilt formatting, and you can see them all sitting up here. We have a few different styles that we can apply to our document. And in general, you'll have in here a normal style, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, title, all of that kind of stuff. And we use these to give our documents structure, but they are useful in so many other situations, such as creating a table of contents. But they're also extremely useful when it comes to making multiple selections. So let's say that I need to change the colour of all of these headings. So where we have introduction and benefits of exercise, and a bit further down we have some other headings, these are all heading 1s. How do I know that? Well, when I click in them, for example, when I click inside introduction, notice in the styles area up here, it's highlighted heading 1. If I click the drop down, you can see we have that box around the outside. Now, another way that we can view all of the styles in use in our document is to turn on the styles area pane. And this is one of those if you know type things, because it is not easy to find. So let me show you how to turn that on first of all. We're going to go into File and we're going to go into our Word options. And then underneath the Advanced page, if we go all the way down here, to the display area, this is the option you're looking for, style area pane width in draft and outline views. And you can see that mine's set to 0.93 inches. Now you might find that yours is set to 0. If it is set to 0, then you need to set it to 1 inch or 2 inches, something like that. Nothing too wide. I would stick to sort of between 1 and 2 inches or 0.93 as I've got just here. Because once you do have that set to a specific measurement, when you jump into Draft View, and we do that by going to View and clicking on Draft, we get to see this little area on the left-hand side. And can you see it's showing us all of the styles in this document? So I can see that this is title style, this is heading 1, this is just normal text, so on and so forth. Everything that we have bullet points on, that's list paragraph style. So being able to see these styles is going to be so helpful if we want to make multiple selections. So let's backtrack. What I want to do here is I want to change the font color of all of the heading 1s in this document. Now, because I have this document styled correctly and everything's marked with the appropriate heading, this makes this task super simple. We just go to Home and we're going to open up the Styles pane. So we're going to click on the diagonal arrow, and you can see that's going to open on the right hand side. Now, this is one of those panes that you can kind of pick up and whiz over here if you want to. So if you want it a bit closer to whatever it is that you're doing, you can pick it up, you can drag it around, you can pull that down. I'm going to put mine all the way over here. Now in here we get to see all of the styles. So if I want to select all heading 1s, all I need to do is in this pane, click the drop down and choose select all 5 instances. And immediately it's going to select all the heading 1s in my document, and I can then just go in and I can change the font color to whatever I want. So let's go for a green color like so, and it is done. That is so much quicker than going through each heading manually and applying formatting. The same thing with all of the regular text in this document. That's all styled as normal text. So again, if we click the drop down and go to select all 8 instances, it's going to select all of the normal text. Now, if you were expecting it to select the bulleted text, it won't, because those are a different style. Those are list paragraph styles. So it's just going to select the regular text, and then I can change that to something else. So maybe I want to make all of this italic, for example. And I've done it all in one go. If I want to select all of the bullet points, again, that's list paragraph style, I can say select all 15 instances, and then maybe I can change those to numbering as opposed to bullet points. So very quickly there, I can use this styles pane to make multiple selections in my document and completely reformat and restyle. Definitely something to think about the next time your manager comes to you with a 200-page document and wants you to work your magic within about 10 minutes. What's up, kids? I've done quite a few videos recently on the importance of word styles, and there's just something that I wanted to add to this because I think this is a really useful feature to know, and that is how we can use word styles to find things and navigate around our documents. Now, I have a document here. Again, it's just the history of the United States, and I've already styled this up. So we have a title style at the top here, and all of these headings that you can see in green, these are effectively heading 1 styles. You can see that highlighted in the gallery. So I've already styled up this document, and now maybe I want to use these styles to navigate and find things. So if we press the Control F key on our keyboard, that's going to open the navigation pane. It's also worth noting that you can get to the navigation pane from the ribbons. If you go to the View tab in the show group, we can select navigation pane. It's going to open up the same thing. Now, notice here we can search for individual terms in this document, we can search for pages, or we can search by headings. So if we click on headings, it's going to pull out of the document everything that we've marked as a heading 1, 2, 3, 4 style. If we don't have any styles in this document, there's going to be nothing listed in here. Now, we can use these headings to jump around and navigate through our document. So this is really useful if you have a very, very long document and you just want to jump to specific areas. You can do that using this method. But what most people don't know is that we can use these to also reorder or rearrange the paragraphs in our document. So let's say, I'm going to scroll down a little bit, where we have Revolutionary War and Independence, maybe I want to move this entire section above Colonial Era. So I could go into here, maybe start selecting all of the text, copy, paste, all of that kind of stuff. Or alternatively, I can just use my headings in the navigation pane. So I'm going to take Revolutionary War and Independence, I'm going to click it, and I'm just going to drag it above Colonial Era and drop. And it moves that entire paragraph. We haven't had to copy and paste and worry about paste options, nothing like that. So we can literally reorganize our whole document simply by dragging and dropping these headings around in the pane, which I think is pretty cool. Now, another little tool we can use is GoTo, and you pull that up by pressing Control G on your keyboard. And this is basically the same area as Find and Replace, it's just the third tab along. Now, using GoTo, we can specify what we want to jump to in the document. For example, if I want to jump to page 3, I can make sure I've got page selected, type in 3, and it's going to jump to page 3. I can jump to specific sections. So if I have different sections in my document, I can jump to that section. I can even jump to specific lines. So I could say line 50 and it's going to jump there. Line 100 and it's going to jump there. And as a side note, if you ever wanted to display line numbers in your document, you can go to the Layout tab, and then in the Page Setup group, we have line numbers. I want to show them continuously throughout the document, so let's select that, and it's going to put a number next to every line in your document. Let's press Control G again. We can jump to bookmarks, comments, footnotes, whatever we want to jump to. And we can also use this to jump to specific headings. So I'm currently clicked in front of introduction. If I want to jump to the second heading, it's going to jump me down to there, the fourth heading, so on and so forth. And if I wanted to move forward one heading from where I am, I could do +1 and it's going to move me across 1. So lots of helpful tips in there when it comes to navigating around your document, and it also really illustrates the importance of using styles when you're working in Word. What's up, everybody? Today we're going to take a look at non-printing characters in Word. Ooh! Now you might be sitting there thinking to yourself, well, what is a non-printing character and why do I need to know about these?
Yes.
Well, understanding how to turn off and on non-printing characters is extremely useful if you spend a lot of time formatting Word documents. So I'm going to show you how you can toggle these off and on and some of the reasons why you might want to do that. So let's dive in. Now on the screen here, I have a Word document and currently I don't have non-printing characters turned on. I'm not showing them. And that is the default. They're not going to be turned on when you open up or create a new document. You have to turn them on yourself. Now, what is a non-printing character? Well, it's things like paragraph markers, spaces, tabs, breaks, hyphens, object anchors, the list goes on. These are all elements in a Word document that are there but are hidden until you choose to show them. Now, why on earth would I need to see these things? Well, let's take a look at this document. If we scroll through it, looks pretty good. It's a document about exercise. But if I was to say to you, tell me where the section breaks are, or tell me where the page breaks are, just by looking at this, you're not going to be able to tell. So if you wanted to maybe remove a section break or delete a page break, you can't actually see where they are easily. The same thing with paragraph markers, for example. If I scroll through this document, I can't see where my paragraph markers are. And I'm going to show you a little bit later on in this lesson why that's so important as well. So if you want to display all of the non-printing characters, all you need to do is go to the home ribbon, and in the paragraph group, we have this little thing just here, show hide. Notice the screen tip, it says show paragraph marks and other hidden formatting symbols. Now, as soon as we click this, suddenly we can see our paragraph markers. It's these things at the end of each sentence. And paragraph markers are extremely important because they hold all of the formatting information for that entire line in a document. And if I scroll down a bit further, I can now see there is my section break. So if I wanted to delete this section break, it makes it a lot easier for me because I can click in front of it, I can press delete and it's gone. If I didn't have these turned on, I can't see it. Now, another reason why it's good to turn on show hide markers is if we scroll to the end of the document, this is a really common problem that people come to me with. They say, well, I finished my document, but then when I'm printing it, I'm getting a blank sheet at the end, or I'm getting a few blank sheets at the end. And normally what you'll find is that you have a stray paragraph marker, or maybe even more than one, on that final page. If I turn paragraph markers off, you can see that I can't actually see them, so I don't really know why I'm getting this extra blank page. As soon as we turn them on, we can see what the issue is just here, so we can see that we just need to delete these paragraph markers out, and it's going to get rid of that blank page or pages at the end. So super useful to know how to toggle these off and on. And my final little tip here is if you always want your paragraph markers turned on, you can set them to display permanently. So let's turn them off, jump into File and down into Options. Because if we go to the display page of Word Options, you can see here we have a group. Always show these formatting marks on the screen. And you can actually choose which ones you want to show. It might be that you don't want to show all of them because you're not interested in all of them. But if you always want paragraph marks, for example, we can turn those on. Click on OK. And they're permanently going to be toggled on for every single document. So that show hide button, really important to know about that because it is going to help you out when you're trying to format a Word document. Autotext in Word. Have you ever used it?
No.
If not, then you are missing out on a fantastic efficiency tip. Autotext enables us to stop repeating ourselves, stop writing the same thing over and over again in documents. Instead, using Autotext, we can save it off as reusable content and just insert it whenever we need it. So let's dive in and take a look at it. Now on the screen here, I have a letter. So maybe I'm the manager of a hotel and I've had a complaint from a disgruntled customer. And this is my reply to that customer. So it's reasonably lengthy. I'm telling them what I'm going to do to rectify their complaints. And then we have signature at the bottom, standard letter. Now, maybe I create a lot of letters, not necessarily for complaints, but for various different things. And each time I create a letter, I create a new blank document, I add in the address of my hotel, the Riverside Inn, and then I type out my letter. Well, I could save myself time by adding the parts of the letter that I reuse every single time as auto text. And auto text is also known as quick parts in Word. For example, let me select this address at the top here. I could add this as a quick part or auto text. So if we go to the insert ribbon in the text group just here, notice we have a quick parts drop down. So if I click the drop down, one of the options we have is auto text. So if I hover over this, the option I have is to save my selection to the auto text gallery. So I'm going to click on this and it opens up this little building block dialog box. And this is where I can add in some details about this particular quick part, building block, auto text, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to say that this is Riverside address. I can then choose the gallery that I want to save it into. So if you have a lot of quick parts, you can effectively categorize them. So if they're quick parts for footers or headers, you could put them in that category. If they're for cover pages, things like that, you can add them into there. Now I'm just going to leave mine in the default, which is auto text. I could set up new categories for this. Let's say create new category. I'm going to call this address details. Okay. And then I can give my auto text a description. And this building block is going to be saved into the normal .m template. Now, this is the template that's used every time you create a new Word document. So it means that this auto text is going to be available whenever you create documents in Word. So that is perfect. And then we can choose if we want to insert the content only, insert it in its own paragraph, or insert it in its own page. So if I wanted to reuse this address, I could choose to insert it on the page wherever I'm clicked. I could put it in its own paragraph, or if I just wanted the address to be on its own page, I could choose this option. Now I'm going to choose insert content only and click on OK. So let's say it's the next day and I need to send out another letter. I can simply press Ctrl N to create a new document. I can go to Insert, into Quick Parts, into Auto Text, and check it out. There is my auto text. Click, and it inserts it in. And you can do this with pretty much anything. So if you have a whole letter that you find yourself sending out all the time, you could select all of this text and add that as a quick part. So we're going to go to Auto Text, Save Selection to Auto Text Gallery. I'm going to say this is the standard letter that I send out. We'll say standard letter. Again, I'm just going to put it in Auto Text. I'll create a new category. We'll call this Complaints. Click on OK, and then I can add a description and click on OK. So if I toggle back to that document I just created, if I wanted to insert that, again, I just go to Quick Parts, Auto Text, and there is my text. So it makes it super simple. Now in those two examples, we were just saving text to the auto text gallery. And when we save to the auto text gallery, it means that when we go to Quick Parts and hover over auto text, we can see the auto text in this pop out. Now, if we save other types of content as a quick part, it's not going to appear under auto text. Let me show you what I mean. So if I click just here, and let's just quickly insert a text box. I'm just going to grab it and put it over here. I'm going to leave the text in there, that's fine. Let's change it to a different color. I'm going to make it purple, and I'm going to add in some text. Now, if I select this text box, go up to Insert, Quick Parts, I don't want to save it as auto text. This is really just for text content that you want to reuse. Things like text boxes, pictures, icons, stuff like that, we want to save the selection to the Quick Part gallery. It opens up a very similar thing. So this time we're going to say standard purple. It's saving it to the Quick Parts gallery, that's fine. I could then add a description. I'm not going to do that just to save a bit of time. Let's click on OK. So now if I wanted to reinsert this text box elsewhere in the document, I can go to Quick Parts and there it is at the top there. Alternatively, if you can't see your quick part, when you click on the quick parts drop down, you can go into the building blocks organizer, and this will show you all of the quick parts available in your document. Now, because I saved my quick part into the category quick parts, if I scroll down to Q, you can see there is quick parts. If I expand this, there is my text box, and you can see the preview. Click on insert, and there it is. So that is how you can use quick parts in Word to create reusable content to save yourself time. If I could write a book about things in Word that people don't realize are there, this would definitely be included. And that is how to insert a table of figures into a document. Now, if you haven't even got a clue what a table of figures is, or you do know, but you don't know how to insert one, then this video is for you. So let's dive in. Now, what exactly is a table of figures? Well, a table of figures is effectively very similar to a table of contents, except the items in our table of figures relate to all of the images, charts, tables that we have in our document. And you'll see this type of thing in books, manuscripts, all kinds of different style of documents. So that's what we're going to run through in the session today. I'm going to show you how you can tag your images and then how you can create a really nice automatic table of figures at the top of your document. So on the screen, I simply have open a document that says Top Travel Destinations of 2023. And in this document, I have a combination of headings. I've got some heading 1 styles in here. We have some junk text. This text doesn't relate to the topic of the document at all. It's just junk text that I've added in. But we do have some really nice images. And you'll see that I have images throughout this document. So what I want to do here is at the top, I want to have a table of figures so that people can quickly jump to the images in my document. And this applies not just for images. It could be a chart that you have in the document. It could be a table. You would use the same method. Now, the first stage of this is that we need to effectively caption all of the images in our document. So if I go down to this first image of Osaka, Japan, I'm going to click on it. We're going to go to the References tab and we're going to say Insert Caption. Now in this little window here, it's going to come up Figure 1. Notice the label underneath. We could choose Equation, Figure, or Table. Now I'm going to choose Figure, and we can give our image a caption. So I'm just going to say, let's put a dash in here, the beautiful Osaka, Japan. So I can then choose where I want to position that caption. Do I want it above the selected item or below? So effectively above the image or below. I'm going to have it below. I could choose to exclude the label from the caption if I want to. So if I choose this box, it's just going to say number 1, the beautiful Osaka, Japan. Now I actually like having the labels in here. If you wanted to, you could create your own label. So if you don't like figure, equation, or table, maybe you wanted to say picture 1. You could choose your own label from here. So let's do that. Let's say picture 1. Click on OK, and then it's going to change, and it's now available as an option in this drop-down menu. We can also modify the numbering in use. So instead of numbering them picture 1, picture 2, picture 3, I could choose to number them A, B, and C if I wanted to. Now I don't want to do that. I want them 1, 2, and 3. Let's click on OK. Now I can see here that I've made a spelling mistake, so let's quickly right click and change that to beautiful. But now I have my first picture captioned. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to do exactly the same for the rest of the pictures in this document. We'll do one more together and then I'm going to do the rest off camera. So insert caption, I want picture 2, and this is the stunning Maldives. I want it below. Let's click on OK. So I'm going to go through, do exactly the same for the rest of the pictures in this document. So there we go. I've added captions to all of my pictures. So that is the first step. You need to go through and do that. If you don't do that, you're not going to be able to create a table of figures. So now I have those, I'm going to go to the top of the document. I'm going to give myself some space. And what I can do is, staying on the References tab, back in the Captions group, Insert Table of Figures. So now I can define how I want my table of figures to look. So currently I'm choosing to show the page numbers. So in my table of figures, it's going to show the page number that figure is located on, and that's exactly what I want. Do I want to right align the page numbers? Well, if I don't choose that, it's going to put the page number right next to the caption text. Now, I don't think that looks great, so I'm going to say right align, and then I can choose my tab leader. So this is this line just here between the caption and the page number over on the right. So currently I've selected dotted, but I could have dashes, I could have a solid line. Now I actually like a dotted leader. And then I can choose what format I want. So currently this is the default from template, but we have different styles. So that's classic style. This is distinctive. We have centered, not too great. Formal looks like that, and then we have simple. Now I'm going to stick with from template. I get the option here to change the caption label. I don't want to do that. I'm going to keep it on picture. Bear in mind, if you do choose to change the caption label to something else up here, because my captions don't actually say figure 1, the table of figures isn't going to work. So this seems kind of pointless, really. We need to keep it on picture. Let's click on OK. And there we have our table of figures. And you'll see that these are clickable page numbers. So if I click on, let's jump down to Rome, I can hold down Control, click the page number, and it's going to jump me down to that image. Control Home will take me back to the top. So the last thing I would probably do here is just add a title. We'll just say table of figures, and I'm just going to make that bold, and let's make it a little bit bigger. Now the final thing to mention here is that if we were to add another image into this document, we can simply update this table of figures by selecting it, right-clicking and choosing Update Field. So maybe let's go down to Osaka, Japan. Maybe I decide to change this caption from beautiful to absolutely gorgeous Osaka, Japan. So now when I go back up to my table of figures, I want this to update. So all I need to do is make sure I have my table of figures selected. I can right click and choose Update Field, and I'm going to say Update Entire Table. Click on OK, and you can see that that now changes to the absolutely gorgeous Osaka, Japan. So that is how you can add captions to images, tables, charts, anything that you want in your document, and then create a really nice table of figures with clickable, hyperlinked page numbers. A really common task that you might find yourself having to do when you're working in Word is creating an index. And the index is kind of the uglier brother to a table of contents. An index is the dirty little thing that appears at the end of the document, as opposed to the table of contents that appears at the beginning of the document. But indexes are invaluable for finding different things in your document, and they work a little bit differently to a table of contents. So if you've never created a table of contents in Word before, then this lesson is for you. Regarde. Now, before we create our index, we need to go through our document and mark our index entries. So our index entries are what we want to appear in the index. Now, the reason why an index differs from a table of contents is that a table of contents is set to pick up all heading 1s and all heading 2s in your document. For example, where it says Osaka, Japan, this is a heading 1. You can see I have that applied up here in the styles area. And so if I insert a table of contents, it's just going to go through, it's going to pick up everything marked as a heading 1 and pull that into the TOC. But we can add anything into our index. It doesn't necessarily have to be a heading. We can add words or little phrases into our index so that people can easily jump to the page of the document that contains that word. So let's go through and do some marking. Now I am going to pull into the index all of the headings that I have in this document. So let's select Osaka, Japan. We're going to go to the References tab, and then we have an index group just here, and all we need to do is say Mark Entry. So our main entry is Osaka, Japan. It's on the current page. We do have other settings. I'm not going to confuse you right now by going through these. If you just want to create a basic index, you don't really need to change too much here. You just need to click on Mark. Now, as soon as I click on Mark, notice we get this weird piece of code after the word Osaka, Japan. And again, we don't have to worry too much about this. This is just the field code that marks this as an index entry. The other thing you'll notice is that this Mark Index Entry dialog box stays open, and that's actually quite useful. if you're marking a lot of things in your document, you don't have to keep reopening it. That is a pain in the backside. So I'm going to move this over here. Let's go through to the next heading, which is the Maldives. I'm going to select this and notice that when I select it, it doesn't update in the Mark Index entry window. It still says Osaka, Japan. You need to remember to click on the box again and then click on Mark. We're going to go down to the next one, Rome, Italy. Click on the window and mark. Let's do the final two. Click on the window, mark. And the last one is London, England. So let's select this, click on the window and mark. So I've marked those headings as index entries. Now, if I scroll down a bit further, notice underneath the picture of London, I have a little paragraph that says some of the main sites to see in London. And then we have all of London's best known sites. So maybe I want to add these into the index as well. Now, these aren't headings. These are just bulleted text. But it doesn't matter with an index. That's how it differs from a table of contents. Now, of course, we can add things that aren't headings into a table of contents. It's just a little bit more fiddly and complicated. Maybe I'll do another video on that later. But if I want to mark these as index entries as well, I go through the same process. I simply select the item, go to Mark Entry, and then I can click on Mark. So I'm going to go through off camera and I'm going to mark the rest of these entries. And there we go. You can see we have that code next to each one. So now when we click on close, it's time to insert our index. So I'm going to go down to the bottom of the page and I'm going to type in index. Now let's make this a little bit bigger so it stands out. And click on bold. And now I am ready to insert my index. So let's go to the References tab. And we just need to click Insert Index and then we can add our customizations. So let's say that I want to right align the page numbers. I want a dotted tab leader and the format I'm going to use is, let's go for this one, Classic. Now because I've changed the template, I need to go back in and right align the page numbers and choose my tab leader. So that's what it's going to look like. I'm going to say that I only want one column. I don't want two columns. Let's click on OK and see what that looks like. Check it out. Now currently I'm seeing all of these paragraph markers and section breaks and things like that. And that is because when we went in to do our index entries, it basically turns on the show hide markers. So I'm going to click these again to turn those off so this looks a bit cleaner. And look at this index that we have. How nice does this look? Obviously, if you don't like this style, you could change the template. I chose the classic template, but we do have other styles in there that you could possibly use. But now it makes it really easy for me to jump to these different sections. And of course, we can update our index very easily. So if I go back up to here, I'm going to add something else on the bottom of this list. Let's go for Hyde Park. If I want to include this in the index, once again, I would just need to mark the index entry by going to References and Mark Entry. Let's just click on Mark and close. And then I just need to update my index. So I need to click somewhere in the index, right click, Update Field, and we should find that Hyde Park is now included. Let's turn off our Show Hide markers. And yes, it is. What's up, kids? In this lesson, we're going to explore a really useful piece of functionality in Word, and that is find and replace. Now, I know what you're thinking to yourself, find and replace, that's so boring and so easy. Well, I think I'm going to show you a couple of little things that you can do with find and replace that you might not have thought of, which solve some really common problems. So keep the eyeballs on the screen. We're about to get started. Now, I've created a document just about the history of the United States. And when we're thinking about find and replace, we really need to think of it in two parts, find and replace. So let's talk about find first of all. Now, find will allow us to search through the document and find specific words or phrases. And we can access find in a couple of ways. We can either go to the home ribbon, and in the editing group, we have find, or alternatively, and this is the method that I prefer to use, there's a shortcut key for this, Control F. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to open the navigation pane on the left-hand side. And the navigation pane is split into 3 areas: headings, pages, and results. So if we just wanted to navigate through our document using any headings that we have, we can click on the Headings tab and we can click the different headings. And this document must be styled with word headings in order for this to work. I've done another video about word styles, so go and check that out if you're not sure how to style up a document. We can also search by pages. So if I want to jump to a specific page, I can simply click on it from this area as well. Now, the results area, this is where we would come if we wanted to search for a specific phrase. So let's say I was looking for the word United States. I can type that in. It's going to search through the entire document, and you can see below all of the instances of that particular word. You can also see that it's been highlighted in the document as well, so really easy for me to see. And I can navigate through, checking out each one of these if I want to. Now, that's all well and good, but a lot of the time when we're searching for something, we might want to replace it with another phrase. For example, I've searched for United States. Maybe I want to replace this with USA. So let's close down the navigation pane, and this time we're going to jump into replace. Now, once again, you could click on the replace button on the home ribbon, or you can simply press Ctrl H. So this is going to open up the Find and Replace dialog box. And notice that we do have a Find tab. So we could use this as an alternative to the navigation pane, but we're interested in replace. So I want to find United States and I want to replace it with USA. Let's click on Replace All. And you can see that it's made 19 replacements. So really nice and straightforward. And I'm pretty sure that if you've used Find and Replace before, that's the extent to which you've used it. But did you know that you can also use Find and Replace to replace formatting in your document? So you can see here, I've got some lines of text that are in a different format to everything else. So for example, this one just here is bold and underline. And maybe I want to remove the underline and make it italic. So let's do Ctrl H again. And one thing you'll notice with this Find and Replace box is it always holds in it the last replace that you did. So you have to go in and you have to clear that information out. Now, when you want to search specifically for formatting, this is where you need to open up the More menu at the bottom, because right in the corner, you can see we have Replace Format. So if we click the drop down, we get a menu shoot up and we can choose Font. And then we can specify what we're looking for first of all. So I want to find all text that is bold and has an underline. That's what I want to find. Click on OK. And you can see in the Find What area, it's now added underneath Font, Bold, Underline. Then we need to click in the Replace With box and we can choose the format that we want to replace it with. So once again, we're going to go down to Format and Font, and I want to remove the underline. So we want none for underline, but we want to make it italic. Click on OK. And again, you can see it's added it underneath. And I want to replace all occurrences of bold underlined text with italics and no underline. So I'm going to choose Replace All. You can see it's made 5 replacements. Click on OK, and it's made that replacement. So you can use Find and Replace to replace formatting. Now, the final thing I'm going to show you is a really common issue, particularly if you copy and paste in text from maybe websites into Word documents. What you'll find is that occasionally, whatever you've pasted in will have too much space in between each paragraph. For example, if you take a look at this document, you can see that we've got a little bit of space. It's not that bad, but ideally, I don't want these paragraphs to be as far apart. I want them to be single line spacing. Now, if we turn on our paragraph marks, so let's click on Home and go to Show Hide, you can see that I've got 2 paragraph markers in between each of the paragraphs. And effectively, I only want 1. That will close up that gap. Now, I don't want to have to go through manually deleting out all of these markers. And the good news is we don't have to, because we have Find and Replace to do it for us. So let's press Ctrl H to open up the Find and Replace window. Now we want to clear the formatting that's already in there. Can you see it's held in it bold, underline, and italic, no underline? Now the way that we clear this out is to choose no formatting at the bottom, and we need to do it for both Find What and Replace With, just to clear out our last search. Now this time we're looking for 2 paragraph markers. So what we can do is go down to the bottom here and click on Special, and the first option is Paragraph Mark. We're searching for every occurrence of 2 paragraph marks. So we're going to do the same again, so we have those 2 in there. And I want to replace them with 1 paragraph mark. Click on Replace All. It's made 10 replacements, and now if we take a look at the document, we no longer have that double line spacing, we're back to single line. So find and replace is not just there to search for text and phrases and replace them with something else, you can also use it to find and replace formatting and find and replace special characters. What's up, people? Footnotes and endnotes in Word. What are they? How do we insert them? What exactly are they all about? Well, this is the lesson where we're going to find out. So make sure you're sitting comfortably because we're about to get started. Now on the screen here, I have a document that is basically a marketing strategy for a company called Delicious Delights. And I will say that I got Copilot to generate this document for me. Now this is some kind of business proposal that we're going to send out to prospective clients. And it doesn't really matter what type of document you're using, any document can have footnotes and endnotes. And footnotes and endnotes, if you're not sure what they are basically ways of adding additional information or important notes to either the footer of a document or right at the end of the document. That's basically the difference between footnotes and endnotes. The clue's in the name. So let's deal with footnotes first of all. When you're thinking about inserting a footnote into the document, it's going to appear in the footer of the page that you're on. And you need to make sure that you click your mouse either next to the information that the footnote relates to or highlight the information instead. For example, here it says the company offers a range of products such as granola bars, fruit cups, yogurt and smoothies. Sounds delicious. But maybe I want to add a footnote in here. So I'm going to click after where it says smoothies. I'm going to go to the references ribbon and we have a footnotes group just here. So let's insert a footnote. It's going to immediately jump me down into the footer of this page only, and it's going to put in a teeny tiny 1. And if you scroll up, you can see that that teeny tiny 1 is next to the word smoothies as well. So now we can add in our footnote, and this is basically whatever additional information you want to add. So maybe I just want to say sample of products, more products available. Something along those lines. So now if I scroll back up to where I've got my footnote, notice that if I hover over the number 1, it's going to show me that footnote in a little screen tip pop-up, which is pretty cool. Now we can add more than 1. Maybe I want to come down to here, and after it says 20%, maybe I want to add another footnote. I get a number 2 this time, and I'm going to say figures are all estimated. And I could carry on going. So you could end up with quite a few different footnotes at the bottom of the page. Now, one thing to note here is that they only appear at the bottom of the page that they relate to. If I was to go on to page number 2, you're not going to see those footnotes there. This footer would be for any footnotes that we have on this specific page. Now, when it comes to our footnotes, we can format them. So if we go back up to our footnotes area and click the diagonal arrow, make sure you have footnotes selected at the top. And this is where we could come down here and make some customizations. So for example, if you didn't want to use the number 1, 2, 3 for your footnotes, you could change it to ABC or maybe use some Roman numerals, whatever floats your boat. You could even choose to start at a completely different number if you wanted to, and you could even insert a symbol in there instead. So a few different options in here you can choose. Let's change to Roman numerals. Why not? Let's click on apply. And if we scroll up, you can see what that now looks like. We have our Roman numerals instead of numbers. Now, the other thing we can add in are endnotes, and these differ from footnotes in that they don't appear in the footer of the page, they appear at the end of the document. So maybe I want to add an endnote about young professionals. I'm going to select this. Let's choose Insert Endnote. It's going to jump me all the way down to the end of the document. I'm going to type my endnote, like so. Control Home to jump to the top of the document. So that is the difference between footnotes and endnotes. Really simple to use. The only other thing to show you here is that we have this Show Notes option. So if I click on Show Notes, it's going to allow us to quickly jump between these different areas. So I could choose to view the footnote area, or I could jump directly to the endnote area like so. But that is how simple it is to insert footnotes and endnotes into your document. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the humble but mighty Format Painter button. How underwhelmed are you feeling right now? But there is more to Format Painter than meets the eye. Now, you find the Format Painter in pretty much all of the Microsoft applications. You'll find it in Excel, you'll find it in PowerPoint. And it is so useful for quickly reformatting documents in Word and copying formatting from one piece of text to another piece of text. But it's not just limited to text. So let's dive in and take a look at how we can use the Format Painter efficiently. Now, you're going to find the Format Painter on the Home ribbon, and it's in the clipboard group. It's this little icon just here. Now, as soon as I hover over it, you'll see you're met with this huge screen tip with loads of information in it. And at the top there, you can see the keyboard shortcuts. So Alt-Control-C and then Alt-Control-V. So you can use those if you want. I have to say, I've never got into the habit of using those. I always tend to click on it. So that's probably what I'm going to do in this lesson as well. Now, how does it work? Well, we can take the formatting from one piece of text and quickly apply it to another piece of text. For example, here I've got a heading 1, Introduction. Now, we do have a heading style applied to this, and this is just preset formatting. So if I click in Introduction and take a look in the font group, you can see that this is using Aptos display font, size 20, and it's this kind of blue color. Now, maybe I want to apply this formatting to this piece of text down here, which is currently just formatted as normal. Now, of course, I could apply the style, but bear with me here. We're going to select the first piece of text. We're going to click on Format Painter, and notice that my cursor now changes to a little paintbrush. So I can go down to where I want to paint my formatting and simply swipe it over, and it's going to copy that formatting across. So that is super useful. However, if you want to copy that same formatting to another line of text, notice that your cursor or your Format Painter has deactivated. So when you click on Format Painter, you can only use it once, which is a bit annoying. But did you know that you can double click on the Format Painter and that will allow you to just carry on painting? For example, let's say that this first paragraph is in italics. So let's just put that to italics. Maybe I want to copy this formatting to the other paragraphs in this document. I can select it. I don't have to select the whole paragraph. I can just select anything. I could even just select one word if I wanted to. Double click on the Format Painter. My cursor changes to a paintbrush, and then I can paint it over this paragraph. I can scroll down and notice that it's not deactivated. I could carry on going, just painting over the top. So let's do this one as well, so on and so forth. And your Format Painter is going to stay active until you choose to deactivate it. And you can do that in one of two ways. You can either click on the Format Painter icon again, or alternatively, you can press the Escape key on your keyboard to come out of Format Painter mode, FP mode. So a really useful little trick. Now, aside from just plain text, we can also use it on things like formatted text. So you can see here, I've got some highlight applied to this little quote. So I could select this. Again, you don't have to select the whole paragraph. I can click my Format Painter and then I can paint that wherever I like, and it will copy that formatting. Now, notice that it's not only copied the highlight and the font style, the font color, it's also copied the indentation. If you take a look at this quote, it's slightly indented on the left and the right. So it will pick up any paragraph formatting that you have applied as well. So that can be really helpful. Now, another thing you can use it for is to copy formatting across things like shapes. So if we go all the way down to the bottom of this document, I've just added in 3 shapes. And you can see that this first one, I've just gone a bit crazy with the formatting here. I've added a shape fill, and you can find all of these options on the Shape Format tab. I've added quite a thick outline border, this yellow border, and then I've also added a shape effect. This is just a glow around the outside. And you can find that glow effect underneath shape effects in glow, and you can see the one that I've selected. Now, maybe I want to apply all of these formatting properties to other shapes in my document so that everything looks consistent. So instead of going to the next shape and doing all of those steps manually, I can simply use the Format Painter to copy it to the other shapes. So we're going to go to Home, we're going to double click the Format Painter, click on the circle, click on the triangle, Escape, and we're done. So much quicker. Now, before we end here, I just want to show you something that it can't do, and that is table formatting. So you can see here I've got a table, and this table is using a specific table style. So this one just here. Now you might think that you can select the table, click the format painter, and then go to another table like this one down here, and then just paint over the top. But you can't. It's not going to work. If you wanted it to behave like that, unfortunately, you need to write some VBA. Again, you'd think this would be really simple, but it's not. But in this type of instance, when you're dealing with tables, it's really not too much of a stress just to select the second table and then choose the correct table style. So in that case, Format Painter wouldn't save you a great deal of time anyway, but just be aware of that because I know it catches some people out. But for everything else, if you want to copy font and paragraph formatting across to multiple items, don't forget, double-click that Format Painter to activate it. If I said to you the word formulas, then the application that would spring into your mind is probably Microsoft Excel, and you would be right there. But did you know that you can also use formulas in Word tables? So if you didn't know that, then you're going to want to watch this lesson. So let's get started. Now on the screen here, I have a basic Word table. I have some sales agents listed across the top. I have some months listed down the side. And in the middle here, this information is just the sales revenue that each agent has generated. And notice that I have a total column and a total row that I need to complete. Now, we don't need to get out our calculators and start fiddling around trying to do this manually because we can use formulas option in Word to do this. So notice that I'm currently clicked in the first row of the total column. And because I'm clicked in my table, I have access to two contextual ribbons, table design and layout. So it's the layout ribbon we need to be on. And in the last group, the data group, notice we have a formula button. Now, when we click this, formula that we need has already been populated. It's summing and then it has left. So this immediately looks different to formulas in Excel. Whilst we're still using the sum function effectively, we're not selecting cell references. So what this is going to do is it's going to sum everything to the left of where I'm clicked, which in this case is correct. Now underneath we can also choose the number formatting that we want to use for our total. But I found that generally, if you're summing to the left, it will pick up the formatting of the cells that are to the left. If you want anything else, you need to come in, choose one of these formats or customize your own. And it's also worth noting that we can use this for other formulas as well, not just sum. We have all of the formulas in here that we can use in Word tables. So we can do things like count, if, min, max, all of that good stuff. So let's just start with sum. I'm going to click on OK, and now I have my total. Now when it adds this total in, when I click on it, notice that it gets that grey background. Now in Word, that means that we're dealing with a field code. And field codes are things that can be updated. So for example, if one of these values in this row changes, so let me change Anne White from 1,262 to, let's make it quite big, 10,262. Notice that the total doesn't update until I update it. So I can right click my mouse and choose update field, or alternatively, I can press the F9 key on my keyboard and that's going to update the formula. If you had a lot of formulas in a table and you wanted to update them all in one go, you would select the entire table and simply press F9. Now, another thing that's different between Word and Excel is that we don't have a handy autofill handle to copy this formula down to the rest of the rows. So how do we do that? Well, it's a simple case of copying and pasting. So I'm going to select the total, Control C to copy, and then I can select the rest of my cells, Control V to paste. Now it's going to look like it hasn't done anything because again, you need to press that F9 key to update the field. And there you can see we have all of our totals. Now let's do something similar for the row at the bottom. So I'm going to click in the first total cell. We're going to go to layout. We're going to go to formula. And this time, notice that it's picking up above. So it's recognizing we have numbers above and it's suggesting that that's what I want to sum, which again, in this case is correct. So you can use terms like above, below, left, right, depending on where your data is located. So let's click on OK, and you can see it puts it in. And we need to do exactly the same, copy, Control C, and then select the rest of the cells, Control V to paste, F9 to update those formulas. So pretty straightforward. Now I've left this cell on the end because this is where we kind of want our grand total. Because this is pretty cool. If we click on formula, we can combine above or below with left and right. So at the front here, I'm going to say that I want to sum everything to the left and everything above. And in my experience, you need to put left or right first before above and below. So let's do that, click on OK, and we get our grand total. So just there, by knowing a few tricks, we've managed to make our life a lot easier when we're trying to perform calculations within a word table. Now at the beginning of this lesson, I said that these formulas weren't really like anything that we use in Excel, but that's not exactly the case, because we can use Excel cell references in our formulas as well. So I'm going to delete out these totals, and instead of using above, below, left and right, I'm going to use A1, B1, C1, so on and so forth. Now this is a little bit trickier because unlike Excel, you don't have those reference points running across the columns and down in the rows. So you kind of have to count. So let's say if I want to add up these values, this first value for John Doe, that is going to be column B, row 2. So when we click on formula, instead of left, we could type, if we wanted to, B2 to F2. So exactly the same as in Excel. Let's click on OK. Now let's see if we can use the same method to copy this down. We're going to Control C. I'm going to select the rest of the cells, Control V, F9, and you can see it doesn't work because it's summing B2 to F2 each and every time. And even when we update, it's not working correctly. So if you want to use that method, I would say it's better for just a standalone formula, one that doesn't have to be copied anywhere. Now, the final example I'm going to show you is just how to use the if function. Now, I will say before I start to do this, that if you find yourself having to do more complex calculations that involve multiple rows in a table, you're better off doing that in Excel and then maybe copying it across to Word. But for simple things where you don't have too many rows, then this formula option is fine. Now notice here, this is a table. Maybe this is an order that a company has put in for different products. So they want 100 microphones, 2,000 laptops, and 350 printers. Now I've already done the calculations just below to add up the price per item and the quantity columns, but now I need to do a subtotal. Now if I click on formula, we can't use sum left, right, above or below because we're not doing a sum technically, we're doing a multiplication. So we would need to use the cell references or what we call R1C1 referencing. And that just stands for row and columns. And sometimes this can be a little bit easier. So if I want to calculate the subtotal for microphones, I would need to do 100 multiplied by 7. So if I was using R1C1 referencing, microphone is row 2 and the price per item is column 2. So I could say row 2, column 2 multiplied by row 2, column 3. Click on OK, and that's going to give me my result. Now, the disadvantage of this method is that you can't copy and paste this down in the same way that we did with those sums. So you literally have to do this formula for each of these rows. So now I have all of those subtotals. What I want to do is add a little formula into this last cell that says if the total of the order is greater than or equal to 10,000, then there is no shipping fee. Otherwise, there's a $50 shipping fee. So if we jump back up to formula, I'm going to clear out what I have in here and we're going to type in if. Now let's use R1C1 referencing again. So we want to add up the total of the subtotal, and that is row 5, column 4. So if row 5, column 4 is greater than or equal to 10,000, if that's true, then there's no shipping fee. If that's false, there's a $50 shipping fee. Close the bracket, click on OK, and you can see we get 0 because this order is greater than 10,000. So hopefully that gives you an idea as to how you can use formulas in Word tables. Again, aside from just doing simple sum calculations, if you need to do anything more complex and you need to apply it to maybe lots of rows, I would definitely use Excel instead of Word and just copy and paste it in. But for simple things where you need just a single cell formula or just a few rows, or you're just doing something really simple like adding up some numbers, then this works perfectly fine. What's up, peeps? Little question for you. Have you ever struggled to get your headers and footers in Word to behave correctly? Maybe you've got your document looking perfect, you've got your header, you've got your footer, and then you add in something like a section break and everything starts to go wrong. Well, if that is you, then this lesson is going to be super helpful. We're going to run through some of the basics of headers and footers and how you can get them to link through correctly. So keep watching. Now, in this document on the screen, I currently don't have any headers or footers. And if you're confused about what a header and a footer is, it's basically information that we add into the top or the bottom of the document that gives the document structure, makes it easier to navigate, or provides information to whoever is looking at this document. So it might be things like the page number, or maybe the file name, or the date, or the author name. There's so many different things we can add in to headers and footers. So let's go in and let's add a header and a footer to this first page. Now, to access your header and footer area, the easiest way that I find is just simply to double click at the top of the document. That's going to jump you into the header area. Up until that point, it's pretty much invisible. And what you'll notice is that when we're clicked in our header, we now have a new contextual ribbon called Header and Footer. This is where you're going to find all of your delicious options for adding stuff into your header and your footer. Now we're just going to add some basic information. I'm going to go to the first group just here, click the header drop down, and I'm just going to add one piece of information. So let's add that template in, and here I'm just going to add in some document info. So we'll put the file name in the header. Now I want to jump down to the footer because I want to add a page number. A quick way to get there, other than scrolling up and down, is to go to the navigation group and click on Go to Footer. That's going to jump you straight down to exactly where you need to be. So in the footer, I want to have a page number. And I want it at the bottom of the page, and I want it in the middle. So I'm going to choose this template. Now notice one thing that's very interesting here. It's giving me 0 as the page number. So let's close our header and footer and take a look at this in more detail. Why do we have a 0 in here? Well, you'll notice that I'm using a cover page on this document. And this is a template that you can add in Word to sort of add an introduction to your document. So Word is recognizing that this is in fact a cover page. It's not actually a page in the main body of the document. And so it's giving me a 0 just here. And what you'll find is that most people, particularly if you do have a cover page, won't have any numbering or a header and footer on their cover page. They only want those on the main body of the document. And you can see that they flow through to the rest of the pages. We have our header and then we have our page. So this is page number 1. The cover page is page 0. Now the problem you have here is that if you were to double click and remove the header and the footer from this cover page, it's also going to remove the header and footer from the rest of the document. So how do we stop that from happening? Well, this is just a tiny little checkbox. If we go to the header and footer ribbon, in the options group, notice we have different first page. We need to select this. And what that will do is it will remove the header and footer from the first page, but we still have them in all of the corresponding pages. So that is one problem solved. Now, if we scroll down to the actual first page of the document, it says page number 1. That is absolutely fine. However, what if you did want to count the cover page as page number 1 and you wanted this to start on page 2? Well, this is where we can format the numbers. Double click to go into your footer area, select the number, right click your mouse and go to Format Page Numbers. And this section at the bottom is where you can define what you want the page number to start at. So maybe I want this to start at 2 instead of 1. I can simply put it up, click on OK, and we should find that now we have page 2 followed by page 3, so on and so forth. So far so good. Things tend to go a little bit crazy when we start adding sections into our document. Currently, I don't have any sections. This is all in one big section, but let's say that I did. So let's scroll down to page 3. I'm going to click at the end of the line, go to layout, and we're going to insert a next page section break, which is basically going to put a break in here, and it's going to push all of the text underneath onto the next page. So we still have page 3 above, and then we have nothing. Where is my footer? It's removed the next page number. If I go to the next page, it then starts on 2. Now, none of this makes sense. I want to be able to have my section breaks in the document, and I want all the page numbers to flow through correctly. So what's going on here? Well, let's scroll back up to this first page after the section break. So above we've got number 3. This is the first one when we've lost the number. Now this is related to that little checkbox that we just turned on a minute ago to remove the header and footer from the first cover page. If we double click in the header, notice different first page is still turned on. So because I've added in a section break, Word sees this page as effectively the first page in the new section, and so it's removing the header and footer. So all we would need to do is deselect this checkbox to bring them back again. So now we have page 3, scroll down, we have page 1. And this is normal behavior. Word will renumber your pages at the start of each new section, hence why this is starting at 1. Now, if you want it to flow through, so maybe you don't want it to renumber, you want it to go from 3 to 4 to 5, all you would need to do is double click in the footer, select the page number, right click and format page numbers, and then we can say continue from previous section. Click on OK, close the header and footer, and now we should find that we have our document set up exactly as we need it to be. So we don't have a header and footer on that first cover page. We then do. Our pages start at 2, which is what I specified, and they completely flow through to the rest of the document. So if you find that your page numbers or your headers and footers go a bit crazy when you start adding in section breaks, it's going to be that little checkbox, different first page. Remember to remove it, and then if you want to continue the numbering, just format the page number and select the continue from previous section checkbox. What's up, everybody? Today, we're going to talk about another really important topic in Word, and that is page and section breaks.
Break it down.
More specifically, how we can use them correctly, because I think you'll find this is going to save you a whole heap of time. So let's get started. Now I have on the screen just a blank document. So the first thing we're going to do here is just get some random text into this document to work with. Now this is another little tip. If you ever just want some random text to practice your word skills on, you can simply type rand, open a bracket, and then you can specify how many paragraphs and lines of random text that you want. So let's say that I want 50 paragraphs and they're going to be 5 lines each. Let's close the bracket, hit enter, and that's exactly what you're going to get. Now let's start out by discussing the easier one of the two, and that is page breaks. In Word, your page will break naturally as you get to the bottom of each page. But what about if we want to insert our own page break? So maybe after this second paragraph, I want everything after it to be pushed down onto the next page. And I've seen people using this method. Now, if you are one of those, what I like to call return smashers, then you're doing this all wrong. Let's undo and check out the correct way. Now, there are 2 ways that you can add a page break, and this depends on if you are a keyboard person or a mouse person. If you're a keyboard person, then all you need to do, let's go on to the next line, is press the keyboard shortcut, Control, Enter, and that's going to put a page break in. So it's pushed everything down onto the next page, and I just have those 2 paragraphs on the first page. And of course, if you want to be able to see in your document where that page break is, you need to turn on your show hide markers. And you're going to find those on the home ribbon. In the paragraph group, it's this little guy here. Let's click, and you can see there is the page break. So if you wanted to delete the page break, you need to be able to see it first, so make sure you turn those on. You would just select it and press the delete key, and it will remove it. So that is the first method, Control, Enter. Now, if you're more of a ribbon clicky mouse type person, Then you can insert a page break by going to the Insert ribbon. In the Pages group, we have a page break option. And you'll also find it on the Layout ribbon. In the Page Setup group, we have breaks. So you can see the top 3 here are all different types of page break. So if you just want to do a regular break, we select the first option and it's going to do exactly the same thing as pressing Control Enter. And if you want to delete it out, same method, just hit delete. So really nice and straightforward. Now, what about if the text on our page is in columns? I'm just going to select everything, Control A. We're going to go to the Layout tab and we're just going to format this as a 2-column layout. So this is your newspaper style layout. Now, what about if we want to add a page break in here? Maybe after the first paragraph in the second column, I want the rest of that column to break onto the next page. Well, this is where we would go up to the Layout tab, go into Breaks, and notice we have an option for column. So when we click this, it's going to add a column break and push everything down onto the next page. And if you've got any stray paragraph markers, which you sometimes get, you can just delete those out. So that is a column break, next page. Again, to delete it, you can just select the column break to get rid of it. Now, what about section breaks? What exactly is a section break? Well, I'm going to put this layout back to 1 column and we're going to turn on sections. Now, how do we do that? Well, if we go down to the status bar at the bottom, notice all of this information. You can see it says that I'm currently clicked in page 1 of 9. It tells me how many words I've got, the language I'm using, whether I've got track changes on or off. Now, I always recommend that you also display section information down here. Now, you do that by simply right-clicking anywhere in that status bar, and then right at the top, you have section. So when we select this, if you now take a look in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see Word is telling me that I'm clicked in section 1. And if you haven't added any section breaks into your document, then the entire document is going to be in section 1. It doesn't matter where I click, it's all section 1. Now, obviously this will change once we start adding sections into our document. So why would we want to do that? Well, imagine for a second that we need this first page to be portrait, which it is, but then we want the second page to be landscape. Now, if I click in the second page, go to the Layout tab and try to change the orientation to landscape, it's going to change all of the pages to landscape. So when we want to apply a different orientation or a different layout to pages in the middle of the document, that is where we would need to add in section breaks. So let's switch the orientation back to portrait, and we're going to go to the bottom of page 1. We're going to go to the Layout tab, breaks, and then in section breaks we have a few different options. So this is going to depend on what you want to do. So if you want to add a section break and then have everything else pushed down to the next page, that would be this one. If you just want to insert the section break and keep the text where it is, that would be continuous. Now I'm going to add in a continuous section break. So now when I click above the section break, notice in the bottom right hand corner it says section 1. If I click in the text below the section break, it says section 2. So effectively, the first page is a different section to everything else in the document. So now I can go to page 2, I can change the orientation, and it's only going to change the orientation of the pages in that specific section. You can see section 1 is still in portrait, but because the rest of the document is section 2, that's all in landscape. And of course, if I just wanted page 2 as landscape and the rest of the document in portrait, I would go to the end again and I could add in another section break. So I'm going to do section break continuous. And then I can click on the page below and change the orientation back to portrait. So now the entire document is in portrait except page 2, which is encased within section breaks. And the same would apply if I wanted maybe a few paragraphs in column layout, but everything in regular layout. Now, let's say that on this page just here, after the second paragraph, I want everything else below to be in column layout. So what I would do is go to Layout, go to Breaks, and I'm going to push everything underneath down onto the next page. So this time I'm going to use the next page section break. So it's going to put a section break in and push everything else down. And then what I could do is I could change this to 2-column layout. And you'll see that this and everything after it is in a 2-column layout. But if we go just above, you can see we still have that 1-column layout. So that is how you can use page breaks and, more importantly, section breaks to section up your document and have different layouts in different parts of the document. If you're anything like me, then you like spending your Saturday evenings reading through long documents about the kings and queens of England.
To the south, I present to you Elizabeth, your undoubted queen.
Well, maybe not. But you might have a job role which requires you to read through very long documents on a frequent basis. And so in this lesson, I'm going to show you a little tool that can really help with that by removing any distractions and also improving things like accessibility. So let's jump into the lesson. Now, here is that document I was talking about, the history of the kings and queens of England. Fascinating. And it's only 6 pages long, which is a surprise, actually. I thought it would be a lot longer than that. But it's long enough for me to demonstrate this little feature, and that is read mode. Now, read mode is probably one of those buttons that you've seen on the ribbon, but haven't really clicked on it to find out what it does. Well, we're going to click on it in this lesson, and I'm going to show you. So if we click on the View tab, you're going to find read mode in the views group. Now you can see currently we have print layout selected. That is the default when we're editing our Word documents, but we have lots of other views and read mode is the newest one, although it's been around for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years now. And as I hover over it, you can see the screen tip. Read mode is the best way to read a document, including some tools designed for reading instead of writing. So this really is for people who have to read through long documents. So people like lawyers, for example. So let's click on read mode. And this is what it looks like. So immediately you can see that we kind of have this book style layout. So like pages like this. We have arrows either side, which allows us to navigate through our document. And instead of moving vertically by scrolling like we normally would in a document, we move horizontally instead, much like we're turning the pages of a book. How beautiful. The other thing you might notice is that all distractions have been removed. And by distractions, I mean the ribbon at the top has been minimized. The only thing we can literally see is the document that we're trying to focus on. It's also in a really nice big font, so we're not straining our eyes reading through hundreds of paragraphs. So this is really nice. We can move across. Again, you don't even have to use those arrows. You can use the arrow keys on your keyboard to scroll through this document. Now, aside from this, which is good enough in itself, notice that we do have a collapsed toolbar at the top, so we can still access a few tools. So if we click on the Tools drop-down, you can see we have the ability to find, search, and translate when we're working in read mode. So this works in a very similar way to finding things in a regular document when we're viewing it in print layout. If I was looking for a specific word, let's type in English, there's going to be hundreds of matches here. Oh no, there actually isn't, there's only 4. And we can use the results area to jump around to different parts of the document. Nice and straightforward. We've seen how that works previously. The thing that's most interesting about read mode is everything that you're going to find underneath this view menu. Now the top option here, edit document, that's kind of if you want to just get back out to print layout, you can click on edit document and it's going to take you back to where you were. Let's jump back into read mode again. Now focus completely eliminates all distractions, so we don't even have that ribbon at the top. And again, this works very similar. We can just move through and it's a really nice way of reading through a document. Now to get the menu bar back, you just need to push your cursor all the way to the top of the screen and there it is. So let's click on view. I'm going to come out of focus mode and go back to read mode. We have a navigation pane option, so that's just the same as opening up find. We can show comments if we have any in the document. I don't have any in here, so I'm not going to click on that. Column width. We can change our column width. So we've got the default set, but I could choose narrow or I could choose wide. So instead of having this book format, if I just want to have one page on each screen, I can just by choosing wide. Now I'm going to put mine back to the default column width. Page color. We can change to sepia if you find that a bit easier to read, or we can change to black essentially. So again, for people who struggle to read text on certain color backgrounds, this can be a useful option to have. Now I'm going to put mine back to none. The layout we can change between column layout, which is what we currently have. We effectively have 2 columns as the default, or we can go to paper layout, and that kind of gives us our print layout style, but effectively in read mode. We're still in read mode. Now I'm going to put this back to column layout. And then the final 3 options are all related to accessibility. So we can click on syllables, which will show the break between syllables. So this is helpful, particularly if English isn't your first language and you're not sure of the flow of different words. You can see where those syllables are. For example, monarchy, England, so on and so forth. So that can be super helpful as well. Text spacing, we can adjust the spacing between our text. So if you find this a bit easier to read, then you could switch into that mode. Sometimes that's quite nice, but I generally don't have syllables turned on as well. I might just have it like that. Now I'm going to turn off text spacing. And then the final option we have is read aloud. So if you or someone on your team has vision issues, you can get Word to read the text back to you.
The history of the kings and queens of England.
And that is how read aloud works. Again, a super useful accessibility feature. So read mode is great for anybody who has to spend any time at all reading through lengthy documents. Have you ever tried to print a long Word document that contains a table and found that on the printout the header row isn't repeated on every single page, leaving you absolutely clueless as to what the information below means? Well, if you've come across that issue, then I am here to solve it for you because this is so simple. I'm also going to show you how to control where your table breaks when you're printing it out. So if that sounds like something that you want to learn, then please keep watching. So you can see here that I've just created a document and I've created a quick table. And this just contains sample customer information. Now this table is pretty long. It spans across multiple pages. And what you'll notice is that at the top of each new page, we've lost the header row. It only appears on that very first page. So if I was to print this document out, Control P, this is what it's going to look like. We're going to have the header row looking beautiful on page 1, but as soon as we go to the next page, we've lost that header row. So it makes our table a little bit harder to read. Now we can very easily get the header row to print across all pages. So let's take a look at how we would do that. Now, in order for this to work, we need to make sure that we're clicked in the header row. If we're clicked somewhere else in the table, then the option isn't available for us to select. Let me just show you. I'm going to click somewhere down here. If we go across to the layout ribbon, notice in the data group at the end, we have an option to repeat the header row, but currently it's grayed out because I'm not clicked in the header. As soon as I move my cursor to that header row, it becomes active. So I can choose repeat header row. And now if I press Control P and take a look at the printout, you can see that that header row is going to print across every single page. And even when we're back in the document, it's going to appear on every single page as well. So that's a really good little hack to know. The final thing I want to show you here is just how to control where our table is breaking. So if we scroll down a little bit, I can see we're fine on page 1. Let's take a look at page 2. We're fine just there. But when we get to page 5, can you see here that Geoffrey Moore is kind of breaking across 2 pages? We've got a little bit of his information on page 6 and the rest of it is on page 5. Now it's much better to keep records together. And there's a really simple way to do this. I'm going to jump to the top of the document, Control Home, and I'm going to select the table by clicking on the little crosshair in the corner. Now we're going to right click and jump into Table Properties. And then if we go to the Row tab, notice underneath Options we have Allow Row to break across pages selected. Now, if you want to keep your rows together, you want to deselect this option and click on OK. So now we should find when we scroll down to page 5, Geoffrey Moore has now been pushed down onto page 6. So we don't have part of his information on page 5 and the rest of it on page 6. So these are 2 really important options to know when you're working with Word tables. In this lesson, we're going to talk about how you can sort lists in Word, because I guarantee there's going to be a couple of tips in here that you don't know about, including how you can sort a horizontal list. So let's jump in. Now, we're going to start out with a really basic sort. So you can see here, I just have a list of training courses that I provide, and I want to sort this list into alphabetical order. So all I would need to do here is select my list, go to the home ribbon, and then in the paragraph group, we have a sort option just here. Now, if we click this, the default is going to be to sort by paragraphs, and it's picking up that I have text selected, and then I can choose if I want to sort in ascending or descending order. Let's just choose ascending, click on OK, and it's going to sort the list. Now, let's say we had a slightly different example. I'm going to add in a few lines, and let's just add a list of employee names. This time, if I select this list and go up to sort, if I was to change nothing in here, just leave it on paragraphs and ascending and click on OK, it's going to sort them by the first word. So Hayley, Heather, Lucy, then Rachel. But what about if I wanted to sort this list by the second name? Well, let's jump up to sort again, because we can change the paragraphs drop down to word 2. So you can see it's picking up how many words I have selected, and then I can choose which one I want to sort by. So if I do word 2 this time and sort in ascending order and click on OK, you can see that we're now sorting that list by the second name. So don't forget about that little drop down. Now, what about if we have a table and we want to sort on multiple columns? Well, again, we can do that. We click in the table, go to the sort button, and we can sort by different levels. So maybe I want to sort by CPD approved first of all in ascending order, and then by level in ascending order. Let's click on OK, and you can see what that does. So because I'm sorting by the CPD approved column first, I have all of the no's at the top because N comes before Y, and then we're sorting by the level. So you can very easily sort by multiple columns in a table. Now let's take a look at the last example, and this one is a little bit trickier. Imagine we have a list of names, but they're organized horizontally and separated by comma space. How can we sort these into alphabetical order? Well, if you're thinking that you can select them and go to sort, you can't, because it doesn't let you select a row. So we have to be a bit tricky and think outside the box here. Now, the way that I like to do this is I like to use find and replace, because what we're going to do is we're going to temporarily convert these to a vertical list. So if we do Control H, it's going to jump us to the find and replace tab. Now, I want to find every occurrence of comma space, and I want to replace it with a paragraph mark. So if I go down to special, I can choose paragraph mark. Now, bear with me here, there is method to my madness. Let's click on replace all. And you can see what that's done. It's converted it to a vertical list. So now that we have this list displayed vertically, we can just sort it in the normal way. I can click on sort, and I want to sort in ascending order. Let's click on OK to rearrange those names. And then if I want to put it back into its original format, so it's running horizontally, I would just do Control H again, and we just want to reverse what we've done. So this time we're going to find the paragraph mark, and we're going to replace it with comma space, and click on replace all. And now we have a horizontal list that's been completely sorted. Have you ever seen that track changes button in Word? Maybe you have, and you just thought to yourself, I don't know what that does. I'm not even going to click on it. Well, this is the lesson where we click on it. So if you're not sure what it is, why it's useful, why you might want to use it, then this is the lesson for you. Let's get started. Now, the track changes button is exactly what it says on the tin. It allows us to track changes. And I will say that when I worked in the legal industry, this button was so highly used it was almost worn out. Because a lot of the time, and let's set up a little scenario here, there would be a very long legal document that maybe the paralegal has been through and checked. And maybe they've made some changes to that document. That document then goes to the partner, and he works through all the changes and either approves them or rejects them. That is what track changes is. It allows us to make changes to a document without actually changing the document until we approve or reject those changes. So it's brilliant for anyone in the professional services industries, and it's also brilliant if you collaborate with a lot of people. So let's take a look at them. Now, this isn't a legal document, this is just a document about the solar system. It doesn't matter what type of document you have, track changes work the same. Now, you're going to find your track changes on the review ribbon in the tracking pane just here. Now, the most important button here is this button, the Track Changes button. One thing to note, this is what we call a double-sided button. So a different action is performed when we click on the top half of the button as opposed to when we click on the bottom half of the button. Now, by default, when you open up a document in Word, Track Changes is not turned on. So if you want to use them, you have to physically click the button in order to turn those on. And we do that by clicking the top half of the Track Changes button. Now, a couple of things happen there. The button is now showing in grey, so we can see they're turned on. I also got this little thing over in the top corner that says Reviewing. And if we take a look in the status bar, you can see here it says Track Changes On. Now, I can use this in the status bar to toggle them off and toggle them on by simply clicking. So we're going to keep as on. So now I'm in track change mode. Another really important thing to check here is that once you do toggle them on, if you click the lower half of the Track Changes button, notice we have some options in there. And the default is to turn Track Changes on for everyone. So currently, I'm not just tracking the changes that I'm making. It means that if anybody else opens up this document, their changes are also being tracked. Now, if you didn't want that, maybe you just want to track your own changes, you would switch this to just mine. I'm going to keep mine on for everyone. Also, one thing to note here in the tracking pane is that currently I'm viewing this document showing all of the markup. Now, we haven't made any changes yet, so we're not seeing any of the markup, but we will shortly. So let's say I'm going through this document at the solar system and I'm a solar system expert. And I've looked at this first paragraph and I've thought to myself, nah, that's completely wrong. And I can see that this paragraph needs to be deleted. I'm going to select it, I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard, and instead of deleting it out of the document, it just shows it red with a strike through. So it's tracked the change that I've made. Maybe underneath here, I want to put in what I actually want it to say. For example, something like that. I want this to say something completely different because this is just nonsense. Now notice the line that I've added is formatted slightly differently. It's still red, but it's showing with an underline as opposed to a strike through. And if I hover my mouse over this, you can see it says my name. We then have the timestamp added, and then it has what I added. Whereas if I hover over the paragraph above, it tells people that I deleted this with the timestamp. Now you might think to yourself, wouldn't this be more helpful if they showed in different colours? Well, no, because the colour is based on the author who is making the changes. So I'm the first person in this document and I'm making changes. All of my changes are in red. If somebody else was to jump into this document and start making changes, Word would recognise that they are a different author and it would show their changes in a different colour. And if you want to see where all that information is kind of held, in the tracking group, if we click the diagonal arrow and go to Advanced Options, this is where you can see where all the colours are controlled from. So you can see that they're set to by author for insertions and deletions. So the first colour it uses is red, I think the next one it uses is blue, the next one is green, so on and so forth when the author changes. Now you can change this. If you wanted your colours to be in a specific colour, you could select them. But the problem here is that, let's say I change my insertions and deletions to turquoise. If somebody else does the same thing, it means that both of our comments and deletions are going to be showing in the same colour. So if we have these set to by author, it means that every new author is going to be assigned a different colour, making it a lot easier to track. Now, aside from insertions and deletions, we can also track things like moves. So if I was to take this paragraph of text, and I'm just going to drag it up to, let's put it in front of this paragraph, you can see it's now recognising that I've moved this paragraph and it's showing in green. So where it's been moved from has a double strike through, where it's been moved to has a double underline. Now you might be thinking to yourself at this stage, but Deb, didn't you just say that everything you change here is going to show in red? Well, let's go back into tracking and into advanced options. Notice for moves, I have those set to green, hence why they're showing in a different colour. You could, of course, set these to by author as well. So if I was to do that and click on OK and OK again, my moves are now also going to show in red. So my general recommendation is to always have everything set to by author so that all yours show in one colour, and it's just the formatting and the screen tip which tells you whether it's a move, an insertion or a deletion. Now currently I'm showing my document with all the markup, so it's showing any changes that have been made. Now this can get a little bit chaotic if you have a lot of authors in there, all in different colours, all lots of markup and all of that kind of stuff. Now, if you just want to go back to simple markup, you can select this. Now, what simple markup will show you is what the document will look like if the changes are accepted. So you can see here, it's added in that line that I inserted. And we can see by these lines down the side, the paragraphs where changes have been made. I could show no markup, so that's not going to indicate at all that any changes have been made, but it's going to show me what it's going to look like if I were to accept all of the changes. And then finally, we can go back to the original, which will show the document before any changes were made. So you can toggle between all of these. Another thing we can do underneath show markup is we're currently showing insertions and deletions, we're showing any formatting, and currently when it comes to balloons, I'm showing all revisions in line, meaning that my formatting is being applied within the document. Now, some people prefer to have the revisions shown in balloons at the side of the document. So if I was to do that, you can see here, there are all the revisions. And this is quite good because it does make it easier to see what's been deleted, what's been moved, what's been inserted, so on and so forth. So you might prefer to do that. We can even review changes just from a specific person. So if I'd shared this with 10 other people and I had 10 names listed down here, not just mine, I could select the name and it's only going to show me their changes. And the final thing is accepting and rejecting changes. So once everybody's made their changes, it might be down to a partner or a manager to go through and see which changes they want to keep and which ones they want to reject. So let's say that my manager looks at this and says, no, I actually do want to keep this paragraph. I don't agree with your suggestion. They can select or click somewhere in this change, and in the changes group, they can reject the change that I made. So it puts that paragraph back in the document. Again, for the next one, they're going to say reject change. Maybe for this one, they want to accept this change, so on and so forth. So that's how track changes work. And don't forget, once you've finished with track changes, you need to turn them off simply by clicking the top half of the track changes button or going to the status bar at the bottom and clicking to toggle off. In this lesson, we're going to talk about one of my favourite topics, and that is styles in Word. I cannot stress enough what an essential skill this is if you work a lot with Word. Styles feed through to so many other things, so it's really important to know how to style up your documents correctly to be as efficient as possible. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to format a document using Word styles. We're going to take a look at how we can use styles to make selections, how we can create our own styles, and we're going to take a look at some of the reasons why styles are so important when you're trying to perform other tasks. So let's dive in. Now, the document you see on the screen already contains styles. And if you're not sure what a style is, it's basically just preset formatting. So you can see here we have a title, and it's black and it's reasonably large. You can see up here it's Aptos 28. We then have executive summary, so that's slightly different. That's Aptos in size 20, so on and so forth. Now, I haven't applied this formatting manually. I've used a style, and you can see all of the styles sitting just here. So the one that's currently selected is using the title style. The one below is using the heading 1 style. Now, the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove all of the styles from the document. And this is actually really useful if you've been sent a document and you need to rebrand it. I know that goes on a lot at companies. They might receive a document from outside and they have to convert it so that it fits in with their own company house style. So we're going to press Ctrl A to select all of the text, go to the home ribbon, and then we have a clear all formatting button just here. So that is the quickest way to remove all the styles and all the formatting, leaving you with just what we call normal text. Now, the styles that you see in here are in part controlled by the theme that you're using within Word. And if you want to check that, you can go to the Design tab and notice here we have themes. Now, majority of the time, you're using the default Office theme. And if you're using Excel 365, that will be this one just here. If you have an older version of Excel, it's probably going to be this one just here with Calibri font that you're using. The newer one is Aptos font. So all of our styles that we see in here take on the color palette of whatever theme we have selected. However, if we go to the Design tab, notice we have all of these different document formatting options. And these are almost like alternative styles. So we're still within the same color palette, but the way our document is laid out will change. For example, if I was to select this one just here and then go back to the Home tab, you'll notice now that the styles are different. We now have these orange coloured styles, underlines and things like that. So you can change the layout from that Design tab as well. So now let's go in and let's style up our document. So I'm going to select the title. Let's go up and apply a title style. I'm going to select Executive Summary, and this one needs to be a heading 1. Company Overview, and remember you can make multiple selections by holding down Control and selecting. Now I'm only going to do a few. Let's make all of these heading 1s. And mission statement, that's going to be a heading 2 because it's a subheading. So you would basically go through your entire document applying these different styles. And you can see immediately one of the advantages is it just adds structure, it makes it a lot easier to read, and just makes it a lot more interesting. Now, once you've applied styles to your document, it opens up a whole world of different things that we can do. For example, you can see I've got the Styles pane open on the right-hand side, and I just opened that by clicking on the diagonal arrow. Now, once we have this open, we can use our styles to make selections. So if I needed to change the formatting of all of the heading 1 styles in this document, I can simply go over to the pane, click the drop down and say select all 6 instances. It's going to select them all. I can then go and change the font, for example. So let's change this to ink free. Why not? Like so. Now, it's worth noting that when you do that, when you use the style to make a selection and you change the font, you're not changing anything about the style. If I was to go to Executive Summary and click on Heading 1 again, it's just going to put it back to how it was previously. So you're not modifying the style, is what I'm trying to get at. If you do effectively want to create your own word styles, and again, this is a fairly common thing because a lot of companies are very specific about the font they want you to use. The colours need to match the brand, so on and so forth. And I will say that most of the time, your IT companies will set up branded styles for you. But just so you know, don't ever go in and modify the heading 1, heading 2, heading 3 styles in here. If you want your own custom style, click on the plus at the bottom to create a new style. That way, you're not overwriting those original styles because they are really hard to reset. So I'm going to give my style a name. Let's just do a new heading 1 style. And then we can go in and choose our formatting. Now, if you want to format it very similar to the current heading 1, you could choose style based on and then choose heading 1 from here. You could do that if you wanted to. Now, I'm going to make my heading 1 style. Let's make it Lato Black. I'm going to make it 22 and let's make it purple and click on OK. Now, I can see that before I did that, I was clicked in a paragraph that I don't want to be clicked in. So let's just put that to normal. And then I could go up to the top here. And then you'll notice in the styles gallery, I now have my custom style up here. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, that orange line doesn't look too good. How can I change that? Well, we can go over to our styles pane and there is DA heading 1 at the top. We can click the drop down and we can choose modify. So we're fine to modify our own styles. I just wouldn't recommend modifying the built-in heading styles. Now, where is this orange line coming from? Well, this is actually a bottom border. And if we take a look at the bottom, we have a format menu. So this is where we can customize other things about our style, such as the indentation or the tabs or the numbering we want to use. So if I go into border, you can see it's showing me that there is an orange border at the bottom. So if I wanted to remove this entirely, I could click on none and it's going to remove it. Alternatively, if I wanted to change the color to a purple, I can select purple. I might want to make it a little bit thicker and then I can simply click bottom border, click on OK, and OK again, and then when I apply my style, that's what it's going to look like. And then if I wanted to apply this to everything I've marked as a heading 1 in the document, I would need to go back to the original heading 1, choose select all 5 instances, and then I can click on DA heading 1 to apply that style. So really nice and quick. Now, another advantage of using styles in documents is that we can use them to navigate. So if we press Control F, it's going to open up the navigation pane on the left-hand side, and we can navigate using headings. And you can see there are all of the headings that we've added into this document. And this will pick up heading 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. And we can just click on these to jump to specific areas of the document. Makes it nice and efficient. And the final reason why it's good to use word styles is that they help us build a table of contents. In fact, if you don't have styles in your document, then you simply can't build a table of contents. Because what a table of contents does is it just looks through the document for anything you've marked as a heading style. And again, that could be heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. It looks for those headings and then it pulls them up to create a table of contents. So if we press Control Enter to put a page break in, this is where I'm going to put my table of contents. So let's go to References, Table of Contents, and I'm going to choose this one just here. Check out what it does. It's found all of the headings. And notice that mission statement is a heading 2, so it's indented very slightly. Now, if at this point I decided that I only want to display heading 1s, I can simply click on the table of contents, go back to the table of contents drop down and choose custom table of contents, because in here this is where I can customize how many levels of heading I'm displaying. So if I only want to display the first level heading, I can take this down to 1, click on OK and say yes to replace the table of contents, and it removes the heading 2. So, to summarize the reasons why you should use styles, it gives our document structure, it makes them easier to read. It allows us to update formatting a lot quicker. We can customize our own styles. And finally, we can build a table of contents that automatically updates. Comments in Word documents. Let's talk about them. Comments provide a really useful facility in Word. They allow us to leave annotations effectively on our document, which is particularly useful if you're sharing a document with multiple people and you want to leave them a little note, maybe saying like, please review this paragraph or please update this text. And in the newer versions of Word, comments are even more useful because we now have threaded comments, which means that other people can reply to them, and we can do things like resolve the comment. So in this lesson, we're going to take a thorough look at comments in Word, and I'm going to show you how to do things like print your document and show all of the comments. So let's dive in. Now, I have a document here about the history of the United States, and this document contains a few comments already. How do I know that? Well, if I scroll down, you'll notice in the right-hand margin, every so often, I've got this little speech bubble icon. If I hover my mouse over it, you can see I get a screen tip, go to comment, and it also highlights in the document the word I highlighted when I added the comment. And that might be a word, it could be a paragraph, it really depends what you selected when you inserted the comment. Now, if I click on the little icon, it's going to open up the comments. So now you can see it says, please review this paragraph. And if I scroll down, you can see we have another comment a little bit further down. Now, as I mentioned, in the later versions of Word, Microsoft introduced threaded comments. Because previous to that, we could add a comment, but nobody could reply to it, we couldn't resolve it. It was just a standalone comment. Now, if you notice, underneath every comment, we have a reply box. So anybody who has access to this document can jump in and they can add their comment. So this kind of makes it more like a threaded conversation. So I'm just going to say done. I can press Control Enter to post. So anybody can dive in and we can review the entire thread all in one place. Now, if you don't like viewing your comments in what we call bubbles at the side of the screen, because some people don't, if you go to the Review tab, notice in the comments group just here, we have a little drop down. So we can choose to have them showing as contextual comments, which is what we have turned on now, or we can show them as a list. So if I click on List, it's going to change this view so that I'm now seeing all of my comments in a pane on the right-hand side. Now, this is actually quite useful if you have a document that contains a lot of comments and you just want to go through all these comments and replying to them. Instead of having to scroll up and down, we have them all in this easy to use pane, and we would reply in exactly the same way. Another advantage of this pane is that we do have a filter icon just here. So if you want to filter your comments, you can, and you have a few different options. So you could filter so that you only see comments where you're mentioned. And that is an important point to know. If you are adding a comment, or even if you're replying, you can direct your comment to a specific person by typing in the @ symbol. I think we're pretty much used to doing this type of thing now. And then you can type in the name of who you want to direct it at. Remember, if you're directing a comment at somebody within your organization, their name will pop up as soon as you start to add it. I don't have an organization or any friends at this point, so mine doesn't pop up with any names, but yours will if you're working at a company. So just bear that in mind. So we can filter by @mentions. We can also filter by active only, meaning comments that haven't been resolved, or we can see all of the resolved comments. So that leads us on to another point. So maybe when a comment thread has run its course, maybe everything's been dealt with, we have these 3 dots, and if we click them, we can choose to resolve the thread. We could also delete the thread from here as well. So what's the difference between these two? Well, if we delete the thread, it's going to delete this comment and all of its replies from the document. That might be exactly what you want to do, but sometimes, just for auditing purposes, you might want to actually mark this comment as resolved, but keep the comments in the document. That is where you would choose resolve thread instead. So let's do that. So the comment is still actually there, you can see the icon, but it now has a tick on it. And when we click it, we can see that it's been resolved. So I could then use my filter to show resolved only. So really nice and straightforward. If we go down to, where did I have that other comment? I think it was a bit further up actually. There it is. Notice we also have a little like button, so we can like comments these days, and you can see who's liked the comment. We can edit our comment if we were the author by clicking on the little pen icon and clicking tick to update it. And what about if we want to add new comments into the document? Well, this is a simple case of just selecting the text that we want to add the comment to. I'll just say this one for argument's sake, going to the review tab, clicking on new comment, and there we go, it pops it open at the side. And I can then just add my comment, Control Enter to post. Now, a couple of other things that we have in this comments area, we can navigate using comments. So depending on where we're clicked, I'm going to click up here, I click on next, it's going to jump me to the first comment, click on next again, it's going to jump me to the second, and we can also go back the other way by clicking previous. And the final point to mention is when it comes to printing, because sometimes if you print a document, you want to print the comments as well. So how do we do that? Well, if we press Control P to jump us across to our print area, now currently if I was to print this document, it's not going to print out showing the comments. If I did want to print them, I would just need to go to my settings, click the drop down next to print all pages, and towards the bottom we need to choose print markup. As soon as we turn that on, when we print the document, it's going to print out with the comments in bubbles at the side. Have you ever wondered how to use bookmarks in a Word document? Well, if you have, then this is that lesson. So let's dive in. Now, bookmarks are exactly what they say on the tin. They allow us to mark text, paragraphs, images, diagrams in our document, and then link to that bookmark. And these are particularly useful if you don't have word styles applied to a document. So if you take a look at this document just here, we've got some headings in here, but I haven't used styles to apply these headings. I've literally just selected the text and I've applied manual formatting. And this is something that a lot of people do. Now, I would always recommend that when you're styling up a document, you do use word styles, as it's going to make it so much easier for you when it comes to navigating around your document and doing things like create a table of contents. But we're going to use bookmarks to create ourselves a little mini table of contents, just so you can see how this works. Now, we can add bookmarks in anywhere in our document. So I'm going to select Introduction. I'm going to go to the Insert ribbon, and in the Links group, we have Bookmark. Now, we need to give our bookmarks a name. So I'm going to call mine Intro. Now, with bookmark names, they're very similar to things like table names in Excel. You can't have any spaces in them. So you need to have it one word, or the words need to be separated with something like an underscore. So just remember that. Let's click on Add to add the bookmark. And you can see we now get those square brackets around the introduction heading. I could do the same for the Norman dynasty. So we want to select it, click on bookmark, and I'm going to call this Norman, and click on add. Now I'm going to add one more, and you don't necessarily have to just add bookmarks to headings. You could bookmark anything in your document. You could bookmark this picture if you wanted to. So let's do that. I'm going to select the picture, click on bookmark, and what is this? This is, I'll just put old_serum and click on add. So I've bookmarked 3 things just there. What I could do is then come up to the top of the document and I could add in some links and link directly to that bookmark. So I'm going to type introduction, and I want this to be 11 points and not bold. Then we're going to type the Norman dynasty, and then we're going to type the old Sarum, Wiltshire. So now I can link to these different parts of this document using the bookmarks that I created. So for this, we're going to select the first one, we're going to right click, and we're going to choose link. And we're going to click on place in this document. And notice here we have bookmarks, and then we have all of the bookmarks that we created. So we can simply create a hyperlink to the bookmark and click on OK. And you can see that that just looks like a regular link. Let's do the same here. We're going to right click, we're going to go to link, place in this document, we're going to link to Norman. And then the final one just here, right click, link, and we're going to link to Old Sarum. So now we should be able to click on these by holding down Control, and it's going to jump us to the correct part of the document. So it works very similar to a table of contents. So these are quite nice to use if your document isn't styled with word styles, and maybe you want to be able to have a little bit more control over the table of contents that you're using. Here we can apply our own formatting, and we can pretty much add whatever we want into our little mini table of contents. We're not limited to just the heading styles that are within the document. So think about using bookmarks in your workbook. They can be super useful. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to smash that bell icon and subscribe to the channel so that we can keep on putting out this content. Or maybe consider leaving us a comment. That's it for now. I'll see you next time.